Here.
City Administrator Gibson.
Here.
City Attorney Hedge.
Here.
All rise for prayer and pledge allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, if anyone would like to address the city council, please come up to the podium, state your name, address.
White Knight.
Approval of the minutes of the November 7th, 2017 council meeting. Need a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Denny.
Second.
Second by Ben. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Next on the agenda is second reading of 2017 number 18 Code of Ordinance relating to City Fire Department.
City of Dayton, Kentucky Ordinance 2017 number 18, an ordinance repealing sections 33.01 and 33.02 of the City of Dayton Code of Ordinances. This ordinance repeals section 33.01 and 33.02 of the City of Dayton Code of Ordinances. These sections establish a city fire department and the positions of a fire chief and assistant fire chief.
Need a motion?
I'll make a motion we pass 2017 number 18.
Motion by Denny. I'll second. Second by Jeff. Ross. Any comments? Let's see, roll call vote, please.
Member Baker?
Aye.
Member Haas?
Aye.
Member Lynn?
Aye.
Member Walter?
Aye.
Member Burns?
Aye.
Member Neary?
Aye.
So ordered. Next on the agenda is 2017 number 19, repealing chapter 36 and 36A.
City of Dayton, Kentucky Ordinance 2017 number 19, an ordinance repealing chapters 36 titled Public Records and 36A titled Public Meetings of the City of Dayton Code of Ordinances. This ordinance repeals chapter 36 titled Public Records and chapter 36A titled Public Meetings of the City of Dayton Code of Ordinances.
Any motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt 2017 number 19.
Motion by Member Hoss,
Second.
second by Member Volkers. Any comments? Roll call.
Member Haas?
Aye.
Member Lynn?
Aye.
Member Walter?
Aye.
Member Burns?
Aye.
Member Neary?
Aye.
Member Baker?
Aye.
So ordered. Next on the agenda is ordinance 2017 number 12, compensation and number of authorized positions.
City of Dayton, Kentucky Ordinance 2017 number 20, an ordinance amending ordinance 2017 number 12, setting forth compensation number of authorized positions for employees under the Dayton Job Classification System. This ordinance amends the Dayton Job Classification System by amending the amount of police officers from 8 to 9 and City Codes Director from 1 to 0.
Need a motion?
Make a motion to adopt 2017-20.
Motion by Member Burns,
I'll second.
second by Member Hoss. Any comments?
Yep, I got a comment on this one. My understanding was when we were considering this that we were going to hire a code director who was also going to be a part-time police officer. Looks like we're hiring a police officer who's going to be a part-time code director. That's what it looks like on this. And I don't know how it's working, you know, I mean, I assume it's working, that most of his work is the code director, but on paper, we don't have a code director in the city. I'm assuming this is costing us more than $43,000 too. I assume that this is an increase in salary rather than 43. We're probably well above that, I assume.
No, the salary is 41,000 and change.
It is?
Yeah.
So it is in that range?
Yes.
That's good.
And I think you might know if there's some additional benefits.
Well, I'll clarify.
There's some costs.
The salary is, but he is eligible for police incentive, which comes out of the police budget, flat. So
Is there any way we can do this without eliminating the code director?
Not really, because of the fact that in order to get that cleft money, he has to be a police officer.
And then he's also, I think, a retiree.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad it's within
So
the
that's some
budget
savings too.
confines, that makes me feel better,
Yeah.
that he's within the budget confines.
And he's doing mostly code, I mean, he did very.
It's all code.
Yeah, it is all code, I think he wrote some traffic check, or parking citations that came in, the people made complaints, that's about the extent of it. 99.9% code.
But that's at your discretion, at administration's discretion.
Now, we need code so bad, I mean, we've been,
His job duties are for code enforcement,
I just don't understand why we gotta change it from codes director to police officer.
because he's a police officer, but his duties are code enforcement department.
No, his duties are code enforcement, that's what you just said.
But he's a police officer.
That's beside the point. Now, I mean, his primary purpose is to, we have a code enforcement officer, city codes director. I mean, that's the discussion here, is whether to change the position from city codes, or to take city codes director from 1 to 0 and increase the number of police officers. I still don't understand why we have to do that. If you're telling me that he is 99% doing code enforcement and police as necessary. And we just met a couple minutes ago, so I don't know.
Joe, we gotta keep the context of the conversation into the job description and the job duties, not into any person that's fulfilling it. Once we
Understood.
start getting into that, then you're starting to get into something that would be, executive session.
Understood, but I don't know any-
We're talking about personnel, and that's something that, of course, we don't want to embarrass any kind of employee. That's-
Understood, understood. And stop me if I overstep my bounds. I don't know any of the qualifications or anything like that because we weren't involved in the hiring process. Do we have to rescind 3139, city inspector zoning administrator? We have a whole chapter on city inspector. Does that have to be rescinded?
Well, right now, it stands as is, you guys can rescind it if you so choose, it's just, and then when something, if that position, you end up changing this ordinance only deals with, it's 83A 170, I believe, that states that you have to have a job classification ordinance, and it explains what job position, what job titles, how many positions, and what the pay range is for. That's what you got to qualify there. Now, you have that other ordinance that says for a city inspector, here's what his duties are, and so forth and so on. That's applicable when you have one. If you don't have one, then it's going to be moot as, inapplicable.
But then we won't have one because you get 0 here. That's what you're changing it for.
Well, that's the ordinance you referenced was for city inspector, it didn't say for codes director.
City inspector, zoning administrator.
Yeah, well, both of those are
The
not.
enforcement of all ordinances, provisions relating to building, blight, and zoning, and to inspect all buildings.
Okay, well, that sounds like that might be kind of a different job, just on the
So we
space.
have a
based
city
on-
inspector who's on.
Yeah, because Campbell County takes care of all your zoning administration and building inspection, so. But the idea is, if someone's in that position, then yes, they need to follow those ordinances. If somebody's not in that position, or that position doesn't exist within the city, then it's kind of a moot point. Now, of course, if it's been sitting there for a while, like this one we just did for like the city fire department, because it's been 20 years since we entered that interlocal and no longer have a need for a chief or an assistant chief, then of course you're going to want to get rid of it, but, and that's up to the city council to decide, if that ordinance has become moot at that point, and then of course, take care of getting rid of it.
Well, then what ordinance would cover him as a police officer to be able to do blight and everything? Would that...
JRs and city ordinances.
Well, what it'll cover him for as a police officer, his duties are going to be as described in his job description as set by the administration. So his
This
duties
is the
are
job
going to be,
description, 3139.
well, that's for that particular position. But there's also a further job description for it that can be set by administration as long as it follows the guidelines of the ordinance. Start at statute, You gotta qualify with all the provisions there, then you go to ordinance, you gotta qualify within all the rules there, and then, of course, the day-to-day functions. Does that ordinance tell you when you gotta show up and when you gotta leave? Does it say when you take your lunch break? Does it say when? Do you see where I'm going with this?
I mean, we even have 3164, which is assistant city inspector, which is a position in here that we have authorized to be at 0. I just don't understand why we have to put it under. We've talked about this before. I don't disagree with having the codes inspector or blight inspector, whatever the title is, report directly to the police chief, because they're both enforcing laws that we put in place. I don't have a problem with that. Putting it into a police officer role, I wonder, you're saying the only extra cost, and there is no extra cost to us as far as pension or hazardous pay.
Yes, there is a difference. If he's
He's-
qualified as a code enforcement, if he's just listed as code enforcement, we can't use the rehire provisions. Thereby, there's additional retirement and insurance proceeds, I think both that we'll have to front, so there's additional monies there. Plus, it saves us, there's a salary benefit that, of what we can give him that we can't otherwise through the police officers fund. It's called Club. Sorry.
So how much extra is this costing us versus having a code enforcement officer?
About an extra $7,000, $7,500.
$7,500. Is there a take-home vehicle included with this?
At the moment, no.
But being a police officer, as with all the other police officers, if he's inside the 15-mile range, you can't have a take-home vehicle, correct?
If he wanted to, or if we wanted to allow him, at the moment, he does not have to. That would be up to the administration to decide.
That's all the questions that I have.
Any other comments? Roll call.
Member Lynn?
Aye.
Member Bolter?
No.
Member Burns?
Aye.
Member Neary?
No.
Member Baker?
Aye.
Member Haas?
Aye. The ayes have it. So ordered. Next on the agenda is 2017-21 occupational and payroll license requirements.
City of Dayton, Kentucky Ordinance 2017, number 21. An ordinance repealing and replacing Chapter 110 of the Code of Ordinances in relating to the imposition, administration, and payment of an occupational and payroll license requirement by persons and businesses, entities conducting businesses, occupations, and professions within the City of Dayton, Kentucky. This ordinance repeals and replaces Chapter 110 of the City of Dayton Code of Ordinances. This ordinance implements the requirements of KRS 67.750 and 67.790. This ordinance requires that business license applications are filed under certain conditions and payment of taxes authorized under 92.280 for both payroll and gross receipts as set out below. Section A, based on the gross receipts of all businesses, trades, professions, or occupations from activities conducted within this city, the amount is outlined in the following table, except as excluded herein. Column 1 is total gross receipts in dollars. Column 2 is the amount of tax in dollars. 0 to 500 is 25. 501 to 5,000 is 70. 5,001 to 10,000 is 100. 10,001 to 25,000 is 140. 25,001 to 50,000 is 170. 50,001 to 100,000 is 200. 100,001 to 200,000 is 270. 200,001 to 300,000 is 400. 300,001 to 400,000 is 540. 400,001 to 500,000 is 680. 500,001 to 600,000 is 810. 600,001 to 700,000 is 945. 700,001 to 800,000 is 1,080. 800,001 to 900,000 is 1,222. 900,001 to 1 million is 1,350. 1,000,001 to 2 million is 1,490. 2,000,001 to 3 million is 1,620. 3,000,001 to 4 million is 1,750. 4,000,001 to 5 million is 1,890. 5,000,001 and over is 2,030.
I'll jump in. Subsection 1, every person having coin-operated amusement and vending machines as defined in this section on his or her premises shall pay an annual license tax to the city in the amount of $10 per machine instead of the amounts listed in the table above. Subsection 2, every person engaged in a business of leasing or renting real property or portions thereof shall pay an annual license tax to the city in the amount of 0.01 times his or her gross receipts, but not less than an amount of $100 instead of the amounts listed in the table above. Subsection 3, every person engaged as a vendor of fruit, ice cream, sherbet, peanuts, popcorn, candy, and other articles upon the street shall pay a license tax as described in subsection E below, but not less than an amount of $50 per year or $10 per day instead of the amounts listed in the table above. Subsection 4, every person engaged in the business of selling fireworks shall pay an annual license tax to the city in the amount of $1,000 instead of the amounts listed in the table above. Section B, based on the wage and compensation paid or payable to in the city for work done or services performed or rendered in the city by every resident and non-resident who is an employee in the amount of 2% of said wages and compensation. The ordinance also sets rules for the apportionment of taxes between taxing districts and administration of payment of said taxes by employers and businesses. The ordinance further requires all documents submitted by employers and businesses are to remain confidential. Lastly, the ordinance sets penalties for violation of this ordinance as follows. Section A business entity subject to the tax on gross receipts may be subject to a penalty equal to 5% of the tax due for each calendar month or fraction thereof if the business entity is, subsection 1, fails to file any return or report on or before the due date prescribed for filing or as extended by the city, or, subsection 2, fails to pay the tax computed on the return or report on or before the due date prescribed for payment. Subsection 3, the total penalty levied pursuant to this subsection shall not exceed 25% of the total tax due. However, the penalty shall not be less than $25. Section B, every employer who fails to file a return or pay the tax on or before the time prescribed under 110.05 may be subject to a penalty in the amount equal to 5% of the tax due for each calendar month or fraction thereof. The total penalty levied pursuant to this section shall not exceed 25% of the total tax due. However, the penalty shall not be less than $25. Section C. In addition to the penalties prescribed in this section, any business entity or employer shall pay as part of the tax an amount equal to 12% per annum simple interest on the tax shown due but not previously paid from the time the tax was due until the tax is paid to the city. A fraction off a month is counted as an entire month. Section D, every tax imposed by this chapter and all increases, interest, and penalties thereon shall become from the time the tax is due and payable a personal debt of the taxpayer to the city. Section E, the city may enforce collection of the occupational taxes due under 110.03 and any fees, penalties, interest as provided in divisions A, B, C, and D of this section by civil action in a court of appropriate jurisdiction. To the extent authorized by law, the city shall be entitled to recover all court costs and reasonable attorney's fees incurred by it enforcing any provision of this chapter. Section F. In addition to the penalties prescribed in this section, any business entity or employer who willfully fails to make a return or willfully makes a false return or who willfully fails to pay taxes owing or collected with intent to evade payment of the tax or amount collected or any part thereof shall be guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. Section G. Any person who willfully aids or assists in or procures, counsels, or advises the preparation or presentation under or in connection with any matter arising under this chapter of a return, affidavit, claim, or other document which is fraudulent or is false as to any material matter, whether or not the falsity or fraud is with the knowledge or consent of the person authorized or required to present the return, affidavit, claim, or document shall be guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. Section H. A return for the purpose of this section shall mean and include any return, declaration, or form prescribed by the city and required to be be filed with the city by the provisions of this chapter or by the rules of the city or by written request for information to the business entity by the city.
Need a motion?
So moved to accept 2017 number 21.
Moved by Member Bolter, second by Member Lynn. Any comments?
Question. Why did you have to, this is the first time I've heard that a second reading and first reading, you had to read the whole thing.
Just the the actual KRS requires us to require anything where there's gonna be any kind of set tax amount. And so we gotta lay out exactly what the tax amount is.
And the penalties.
And then the penalty always have to be laid out, but none of the rest of it is all mixed up.
Anyone else,
Yeah.
anyone else have any comments? Roll call.
Member Walter?
Aye.
Member Burns?
Aye.
Member Neary?
Aye.
Member Baker?
Aye.
Member Haas?
Aye.
Member Lund?
So ordered. That's all I got. Next is the city administrator's report. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. The first thing I have is just a clarification from last meeting, and it actually dates back to October when I got a motion for council to kind of set into motion the review of the industrial zone ordinance, something that we would take to our planning and zoning staff, and you all approved that. Last month, I asked for another motion for the planning and zoning board to look at and amend the Manhattan Harbor pattern book, to which you all granted that motion, but there was a comment about if that was going to cost us anything, and my answer was no. And in reality, that was the case, because they were going to combine both of those onto one meeting and just charge us their usual amount for that process instead of charging us twice. But I wanted to clarify that since there was a comment about whether or not it costs us any money. Technically, the answer is no, but if you combine it with the other one, technically we are paying the county a fee for their service for that first one. So there wasn't any confusion down the line. I wanted to make that clear to council. I don't really need another motion, I wouldn't think. I just wanted to clarify that that's the case before we move forward with it. We are going to break them up now, just due to timing. I'm going to mention a planning and zoning meeting that's coming up on January 3rd, in which we'll also discuss the Manhattan Harbor pattern book. And again, for clarification, we say we're amending it, we're not changing anything as regards to the pattern book and the ordinances that outlay some of the aesthetics and guidelines for Manhattan Harbor. But what we're doing is combining the single-family pattern book and the multifamily pattern book, since they were done by two different developers, into one more easy to read document as some of these other development firms come on board. It'll just be a little bit easier. So later on in the spring, we'll touch on the industrial zone information. There's just going to be too much on that January meeting to throw everything on there. So just clarification. Next thing I have is regarding the comprehensive plan. I met with the Northern Kentucky Ag District yesterday, and we're going to kind of set forth the goals and objectives coming forward. Part of that is I want to create a comprehensive plan board that will meet very frequently throughout 2018. Sometimes at night, sometimes during the day. It's going to be comprised of city staff, council members, citizens, planning and zoning members, even various school officials, should we so choose. But what I wanted to ask tonight was, I'd like for 2 council members to serve on that board. So I'd like to know if anybody would be interested. I think there probably are some. And if you are, I'd like to have that discussion now so we can go ahead and maybe start to get a meeting on the books for after the first of the year.
Is there any conflict if I was to volunteer for this board since my wife works for NKADD?
No, you'd be fine. No, this is just an advisory board, you're fine.
I would want to be on this board, absolutely.
Shows anybody else?
Anyone else? Yeah.
All right, we're putting together the board, so I'll let you know here probably next week or so if we get we'll try to get something on the books for after the first of the year, and I'll start reaching out to some of the other people that serve on the board. Get everybody in contact and let you know kind of what's expected of the board for 2018. So that's, I know that's something you all brought up in the past, so we're getting underway on that.
What's your target date for completion on that, Michael?
Probably late 2018. It's going to take the majority of the year.
Understood.
Next thing I have is I talked with Jeff. We need to make the OKI board appointment for 2018. So I'd like to ask for a motion to reappoint Jeff Folter as the state representative.
You second that?
Yeah.
I'll second that. That's great.
We have a motion and a second there to reappoint Jeff Folter to the OKI board.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Next thing I have is that time of year for the additional compensation that we budget for our employees around this time of year. It's $100. I'd like to ask for a motion to allow us to pay that out.
I thought that was already included in the budget.
It is in the budget,
Why is there a motion needed for an extra
per the ordinance that we have set up under the
ordinance says that, it needs to be approved by you guys for the extra $100 in additional compensation.
I'll make that motion. Motion by Bill,
Second.
second by Ben. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Next thing I have, we'd like to set a special council meeting for next Tuesday, December 12th, to pick the design firm that will design the new city building. We want to remind everybody that the submissions are due next Monday. There is a front and back page, just in case you don't miss that.
It's 11.
It is the 12th.
So the 11th is.
Due on the 11th. The special council meeting would be December 12th. And was curious as to the time, if 5:30 would work, or I would assume 6 o'clock, if 5:30 doesn't work, if someone's going to have some distances to travel.
Michael, before we set that time, and maybe this isn't the time to do it, but I have some questions about the process.
Go ahead.
Okay. You know, I picked up my documents yesterday, I guess, and you were not in the office. And I'm a little bit familiar with this process because of some school facilities work that I've been involved in over the 4 years that I've been in education. But this is this is the most critical decision we will make in picking this design firm for the entire project. I mean, this firm and their lead will be the project manager for us throughout this process. And, you know, if you look at all the documents, much of it seems the same. There's a lot of, they use the same consulting firms, the same engineers, you know, that kind of thing. To me, I would like to see us slow down a little bit. I would like to see us score these, that's fine, get a score. But I'd like to have a presentation done by our top 2 or 3 picks. Have these people come in, and I would like to see us develop some essential questions in relationship to what we want to know from these people that we didn't get out of these documents. You know, give us a ballpark cost of the project. What is their cost of the project? I know a lot of times it's a percentage of the final cost, and they don't know that until they map it all out. But what are the options we have with the land that we have? What are some options? How many options do they plan for? What's their experience with overruns and you know, being on budget, that kind of thing? It's like when I'm interviewing for a principal's job, I don't take the resumes and say, okay, this is the best looking resume. It's all good on paper, but when you hear them and they need to project what they're going to do, it's a little different for me. So, you know, I would like to see us take the top 2 or so and have a presentation. And, you know, I don't let the public come in and hear their presentation. But I just think that, for me, that's the way I'd want to go with this. I'm just telling you that, you know. So.
I echo Mr. Walters' concerns about this. It's taking a large swath of land in our city. It's going to be changing the face of our main street if this proceeds for the next 50, 100 years, who knows? I mean, current city building's been in space for 50, 100 years. So I agree that we shouldn't just take the best looking resume, and they all look pretty good. I know some of the firms personally. I know they're all professional, and they have the requirements. But I agree that there are too many questions, and also I want to make sure that the public is being able to have a chance to voice their opinions on this. I mean, I'm not a structural engineer. Never claimed to be. I hate to think that what I read over my kitchen table is going to change the face of the city for the next 100 years without having some public input into that decision. Because there's a lot of smarter people in the city, a lot of smarter people than me in the city, and I'd like to get their input on it as well as make a public forum rather than a kitchen table decision.
Anyone else?
If you were if we were to proceed with this process the way that you proposed, Mr. Mayor, what are you asking us to do next Wednesday at this meeting? What will you be asking us to do?
I'll be asking you all to,
Next
if we
Tuesday.
have it next Tuesday, what we'll be asking you all to do is to confirm the firm that received the highest score through this process. So as it stands right now, council and the mayor are in full control over schooling the system, not anybody else, not the administration, not the public. So next Tuesday, we would confirm the highest score. After that point, the administration would go into negotiations with the firm to set the full scope of the project and the price. At that point, when the price is set, we would come back to you all in January to accept the contract and the pricing. And obviously, at that point, we don't have it in the budget, so we would either need to amend the budget to reflect that cost or take it out of a separate fund. So that would be, that is the projected timeline at this moment, would be to confirm the highest score next week. We would enter the negotiations for the scope and the price, and we would come back to confirm that in January. If for some reason the price comes out that it's, or the firm that we selected, the price comes out much higher than we think is fair, and we're talking to lots of other smaller Kentucky cities that have done this type of work, so we're going to know what to expect as far as price goes. But if something comes back that we're not comfortable with, then we'll come back to you in January and say, negotiations went forward, nothing really came about of it. At that point, we'll ask you all to confirm the second highest point total, and we move forward with negotiations and so forth. That would be the plan as it stands right now.
Here's my concern. I mean, the debate can go on and on about whether a city building should go on that lot. My concern is, as Mr. Volter said, the process. This could be a $5 million project, okay? And the process seems to be very rushed, and I don't hear anything about competitive bidding.
What do you mean? 9 submissions.
There's 9 submissions, but I'm talking about the money part of it.
Well, you can't control that. It's a request for qualifications.
Understood, and that's been pushed through. We are not engineers or experts in this. This is only the second time I've had to go through something like this, and as he said, this is a marketing piece that we're going off. It's pretty much boilerplate that they just change it to the city of Dayton. They all listen, they all have the same engineering. My concern, honestly, is moving down this path without any other discussions of should we do it this year. We don't have the TIF money coming in yet, which is part of this equation. I'd hate to, I mean, we've already had 9 firms that put some work into this, and it hasn't even been agreed to whether or not this will be awarded by council. We don't have the money, and even if it was a $4 million project in total with all the engineering and architectural fees, you take that over a 20-year bond, that's $200,000 a year. Our budget is already projected to be under $586. We've got projects coming up that we have to do where we're going to lose these grants, and we have a lot of money allotted out of that $586 towards the sidewalks, which we desperately need, and the lighting in the central business district to keep everything going down there. The riverfront walk, I always hear from people that we've been cut off from the river. That's a very important project for our citizens. We have no clue what's going to happen in Frankfurt in January and February with this pension. We may be saddled with $200,000 to $300,000 more a year in pension costs. We need a new public works building. Council's been talking about that for 10 years. It's sliding down the hill. This whole process, I feel, has been very rushed, and I don't want to be bullied into rubber stamping a decision that we haven't had the public input on. I don't want to push these firms down this road thinking that they're going to get this job, they're going to get this job, and then if we don't award it because of the money, then the next time when we do get the TIF money in and we are ready to do it, the firms don't want to participate. We've kind of wasted their time. That's my feeling on it. I would rather wait until we're ready and until we're all sure that financially we can do this. I mean, we're putting the cart before the horse. We're going to have a pretty painting on the wall of this building that everybody's going to want this new building and ask when it happens, and it comes down to the money. And that's a tough call.
Well, I disagree. I mean, this thing is not being rushed. This thing is 10 years in the making. We've been talking about this all year as a priority. At least some of us have been talking about it as a priority. We do have the money. You know, and I know, what we've done with that budget the last 3 or 4 years has been great. We've been adding money to the general fund, not losing money. So you can be concerned about this year's budget as it's set, you know, we're carrying over $500,000 to balance the budget. We've been doing that for the last 15 years. I mean, every year, we still manage to give money back to the coffers. We've done a great job saving in this community so that we can afford something like this. And, you know, I would hope that the argument of for it or against it isn't weighing into the equation of this feeling rush. You all have been involved with this process to the fullest extent for the last several months. I've made it very clear of the timeline. No one objected. You had full.
You didn't ask us about the RFQs.
You had that RFQ draft for a full week before the article was published in the paper to come back to me and voice your concerns. If you all had concerns, I would have taken that into consideration before we started passing out the RFQ to all the firms that requested. So respectfully, there have been opportunities to weigh in on the timeline, and nothing was ever spoken to me about concerns until it was a little too late. I agree we received more submissions than I expected, which is why we extended the time for review. I thought it was fair. But regardless, if this thing got pushed, there's always going to be 9, 12, 15 firms that would be interested in doing this. It doesn't take them a whole lot of effort to submit an RFQ, I understand that. But what you've got left is 6 more than qualified firms to do this job. They've all done city buildings, they've all done municipalities, they've done fire stations, police stations, schools. I understand Jeff's point, this is a very important decision, but you've got 6 great submissions that you really can't go wrong with. And if it comes back that the firm that we chose is being too greedy with price, I would hope that you've respected what we've been able to do the last couple of years to not make a poor financial decision on that part. But regardless, we still have to bring that back to you all for approval. So we're selecting a firm, but there's still other pieces of this puzzle I understand to put together. We're not, you know, you can have, you know, any of those firms would be more than willing to come in next Tuesday, even with a day's notice, and give you a presentation. They're going to give you the same thing that you're looking at right now. You may have some questions for them to answer, and that's great, and I'll be all for that if that's what you end up doing. I did not want to take the liberty of changing the process on my own. I think if you all have concerns about the schedule, then it needs to be conveyed tonight, and if you want firms to come in and interview, that's fine, that's great. We could make that change. As I said, any of them would be more than willing to come in and interview for the position.
Okay, here's my.
Let me ask you a question. Good job. What you're thinking is go ahead and score them. Get your top 2 or 3. Set a date. Have them come in and interview, and then come back and then rescore.
Or just have a discussion. Do we want to keep the top score? Because my thing is this, and I've seen this happen.
I don't have a problem with that.
You know, like I said, we get 4 top candidates, and then all of a sudden, the 4 come in, and one of them blows you out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
They're just that much better when they present what it is that they're talking about, what they're doing.
I've put them on notice that they could be called to come in and interview. And even if you got the scores in next Monday, and I picked up the phone and called the top 3, if that's ultimately what you'll do, they'll be there Tuesday night.
Well, we don't necessarily have to have them come in then. I just want to make sure that, I'm not against going ahead and scoring these.
Right.
I just want to get the top 2, because honestly, when we score these, we're liable to have somebody get a score of 96 and somebody else have a 95.5, and you got 0.5 of a point separating your top 2 scores.
Right.
And what's going to determine that is when they come in and talk to you.
I agree. I do. I totally agree. I say that you want to score first, have them come in after we score the top 2, and then 2, 3. Which one? 2, 3.
Why don't we wait till we score and see what kind of range we got?
Okay.
Because if you got 2 that are up here and 4 that are down here.
Right. So there's no sense of bringing together 4 now.
Well, if 4 of them come in at 94, between 94 and 96, and
Well, I don't know that we want to do 4, top 2 or 3 at the most.
I would think that's best.
really, not much, we can't waste enough or spend enough time on something like this.
You can spend too much time. You can, I mean, they're all qualified to do the job.
I just think
You're
it's
selecting-
important to talk to these people.
Well, if I could, to your statement about the RFQs, okay? The administration put together this RFQ proposal, and we were asked if we had any changes to make to it, and I didn't. But I asked Attorney Edge if council approval was needed to even start this process, and your indication was no, that the administration has every...
You can go and get a bid anytime.
Right, you can go out to RFQ anytime, so it's... Michael,
The thing with it is, we don't want to do that. The thing with it is, we want input from the council. I want input. I don't want to just, let's run this down the road type of thing. We want to score. I don't have a problem bringing people in, interviewing them. If you want them all to come in, I don't care. I really don't. Jeff's got a good idea, 2, 3, depending on where you're scoring at. I think that's where we need to be, and I think the audience and anybody, any citizen should be notified if they want to come in and listen to it. They have questions for these people, I don't have any problem with that. Set a night aside to do it. I mean, that's a good idea. I mean, it really is.
well, it's the right way to do it. You don't just pick one and run with it.
I mean, you could.
You could if you were rushing the deal.
Nobody's rushing anything. I mean, how can you say such a rush when it's 10 years old?
It's been 10 years old in someone else's mind. We didn't have the YMCA building available as city property that we could easily move the police department down to and use that whole first floor and that the police department has right now and the whole basement that's the police department. I hate sitting in your office, Michael. I feel like I'm in a used car salesperson because you're up against the wall. I agree, we need more room. We need better meeting spots as developers and investors come in. I absolutely agree with that. My question is, we're deciding to go down this path without exploring any other options and any other needs, such as the public works building.
Those are, we're thinking about those every day. I mean, we're not gonna get, I'd rather not get into all that other stuff, believe me. And Bob can back me up on this. We're looking at every angle of the city that you can possibly think of. Like, I sound like Donald Trump when I say that, and I apologize. But, you know, without going down that rabbit hole, this thing has been discussed. This thing's been sitting in the motion 10 years. You and I have talked at length about the other options, and you both know why they're not available options. The YMCA is not an option in the development footprint. It's going to go away at some point. Something is going to be developed there. You can't move the city building anywhere outside the TIF district because then you don't get $2 million to pay for the city building.
You can move TIF districts. I've spoken to a couple
You
attorneys about
can,
it.
yes, you can.
move
You
TIF.
can absolutely move a TIF district. You can
Okay,
absolutely do
so
that.
we have explored that idea. We have said this is going to be the way, this is the way it was developed 10 years ago. We haven't
You're
updated.
you're banking on getting multiple taxing jurisdictions approval to do that. What if they deny it? Why would they want to continue to give up tax revenue if you want to spread it throughout the whole city? They'd be crazy to do that. You're talking about them giving up tax revenue, not just the city. You have 5 different taxing districts that would have to sign off on that.
And it's about.
I just want to make sure that if we proceed down this path, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 that are going to come in and give a presentation, I would rather see it after the holidays rather than next Wednesday or whatever, or Tuesday, excuse me. And I want to make sure that when council decides on which one to choose, that it doesn't give administration a carte blanche to, because I know it says award the contract in your initial time frame, that we would be awarding the contract next December, or next Tuesday, December 11th.
No matter what, whether you do it Tuesday, which we're not, because of the fact that we'll get the numbers, we'll pick the top 2 or 3, let them do the presentation. It's going to come back to council to pick who they want. I don't have a problem with it.
Well, once we pick who we want, where does it go from there?
Then this is the same process, the mayor and I enter.
It has to come back to us for approval of any funds expended on this, correct?
Right, this is not, we don't have it in the approved
If it
budget.
ain't a budget, I can't spend it. Bottom line.
And it's probably about
It's going to be well above 20 grand, yeah.
Right. So,
Those are the concerns and questions I have.
Right.
anybody else
Hold on,
have
so-
other questions about this?
So are we gonna,
I agree, like I said, I agree with what you're planning on doing, I think that's very good.
so,
Thank you.
just so I'm on the same page,
Tuesday
when I
night.
get it, or they'll come in next Tuesday, but did we want to do that, or did it sound like that was?
Yeah, the 11th, you're going to be all into you.
Right.
We're going to score them. We'll know what the score is. And then at that time, we'll notify, you want 2 or 3? Or does it?
Well, I need to know, because I need to.
I would like to go ahead and score them and have the special meeting, and then us, discuss the scores that we came up with and determine how many we want to have come in at the special meeting.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but say we got, like you said, let's say you got one in the 90s and another one's in the 70s, and that's 2 or 3. Do you want to bring in the third one, or do you just?
Well, I think it depends on the scores. I mean, if we got 3 that are relatively close to the
Great, yeah,
range,
great.
fine.
We can decide that Tuesday night.
Yes, I think we'll get the scores into Michael like the timeline
Right.
has said.
Right.
Let's have our special meeting, let's bring the scores, and we'll have a discussion and figure out how many we want to have come in at that time.
And then we would have them come in January 2nd.
Well,
No, I think you need a special meeting for this.
yeah, January sometime.
Yeah, I think you
You would want to do it.
We want to give notice to the public that,
Yeah, we want to give notice to the public, we want it open so people can speak. So I think it's going to have to be like a special, different meeting altogether than a council meeting.
Once we pick the top firm, what do you, on your timeline, was it 4 weeks or 8 weeks between then and the point that they would come back with the cost estimation?
No, we would have that within the week.
Within a week? Okay.
Because these firms have all done it before, it's not going to take them very long to come up with a project scope and a cost.
they know the ballpark cost now.
Sure.
Yeah,
Get into it.
yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the questions we need to ask.
Right out of the filing cabinet.
Well, it depends, do you want a pole barn, or do you want marble siding on the building? A lot of design elements that are gonna affect.
There are, but they've got a round figure. They already know what that 12,000 square foot building and 2 floors and.
Anyone else have any comments on this? So that's basically where we're at right now. So we'll score them, they'll be in by the 11th, they'll be in here on the 12th. And then we'll score, and then we'll decide what we're gonna do as far as how many are gonna come in at that time, how many people are gonna come in to present to us.
So we still have the council meeting next Tuesday?
What time?
Oh, that's what we gotta figure out, 5, 6,
6
whatever.
is the earliest I can make it.
6, anybody, 6 o'clock, is everybody? 10?
Fine.
Fine? 10, yeah. Okay, 6 o'clock.
And then the last thing I have, there will be a planning and zoning meeting on January 3rd here in this building at 7 o'clock. If you're interested there's been a lot going on behind the scenes with Manhattan Harbor, a lot of good stuff. If you're curious what the latest and greatest is, there is a developer, a national developer that has submitted a site plan for the area east of Berry Street where the park restriction was. That case will be heard, so if you want to hear the latest and greatest, that'll be January 3rd here at 7 o'clock. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. City attorney.
Nothing to report.
Department heads, Tiffany.
Donna submitted all the financials.
All right, thank you. Bob?
Sure.
Hello, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Last month, I mentioned that we had 3 places that were available for rent, and I said I expected them to rent sometime in the spring, because new commercial rentals generally don't happen in the last 2 months of the year. Well, today I'm here to tell you I was wrong. I was very wrong. In the month of November, we've had all 3 available spaces for rent, 5 new tenants. 638 6th Ave, what we know as the former Dayton Bar and Grill, will be opening in January. It's the 2nd location for Buck's Barbecue. Buck's Barbecue currently has a location in Latonia neighborhood in Covington. 624 6th Avenue, former Christopher's Dayton Chili. Will be opened as a breakfast and lunch place by Dayton resident Robbie Thomas. It will open in January, and it's looking to have signature waffles and Wex. And for those of you who do not know what a Weck is, or not from Buffalo, New York, it's a sliced roast beef sandwich with juice and trivia. I had to look it up myself, I didn't know what a Weck was. If you've ever heard the term for Buffalo Wild Wings, BW3, that was because the original name was Buffalo Wild Wings and Wex. Wex is the type of bun that they put it on in Buffalo. So that sounds very interesting. 505, 507 6th Avenue will be opening up as a retail store, vintage outlet, with vintage women's clothing and collectibles and knickknacks. Also this month, 635 6th Avenue, what we generally call is the Ramey Building, and I'm really not quite sure what the proper spelling of that is, but there is at least under contract. We found a new owner for it, and they will have a tenant on the first floor, Bridewell Stone. They make crystals for jewelry, both wholesale and retail. So currently with this, we have three rental abatement applications in process, 4 signage applications. Oh, I should have done this, and a structural facade application process. Could have done that because, okay. Also, 70 property owners are reaching out to me about putting their buildings up for sale or for rent the next couple of months. So we're really building some momentum, as we, as I mentioned a few months ago, I said we had no rentals available, and then we had some rentals available. Again, right now, I don't think I have anything. I have 1 space for rent, 515 Clay. It's across from Hanston. It's up for rent. So they're going on there. So there's a lot of activity going on, a lot of great new businesses coming in. Also want to mention the Dayton Holiday Market. This is our first pop-up market. Really need to thank Sandy, Beth, and Doug, and everybody who helped pull this together. Thank you all. And we have our artist here who turned the 8-ball on the back of that space into a snowman. And let me applaud you for your creativity, because I didn't see that until it was done. Once you did it, like, how could you not see that? But, I think it's going very well. We had several crafters there. Alejandra is there from Una Taza Coffee, who we're hoping to have her open up this spring on the avenue. Along those lines, Dayton High School and Middle School Band will be playing at the Holiday Market Friday, December 15th at 6:30. So that'll make another fun event. Trees, we've pretty much planted all our trees. Thanks for the warm weather we've had into December. We got all whole bugs and the trees planted in yesterday. It was a challenge getting all our lights up along the 6th Avenue, which everything looks amazing, and we also say all the planters look amazing, and that, so a lot of those have been put into Gilliland Park. One, you may notice there was an empty tree well and a tree well on the 100 block of 6th Avenue, across from Shell. One of them has gone in there. So I want to thank Public Works and Soda Conservation District for bringing this done. Recreational Trail Grant Program reopens this month, so I plan on resubmitting that application. I'll tell you what, I went up into Sergeant Park this weekend, and I'll tell you one thing I'm worried about, I'll say it, is ash trees. We have to put money in the budget, because we have a lot of dead ash up there, and I think before we do anything, we're going to have to take those ash out of there. And it's really sad what the Emerald Ash Board is doing to our region. GRW has completed the surveying of 6th Avenue. Right now, they're in the process of digitizing it to get all that information and putting it into their AutoCAD systems, and I talked to them. And we'll be having a stakeholders meeting sometime in January. Not sure the date yet, but I talked to Mike Esselon, and he agreed we could do something in January. So we'll put together a chance for people to look at some of the preliminary designs on the bump outs and stuff along 6th Avenue. There will be no Main Street Advisory Board this month. It falls on the 28th, and everybody's going to be away for holidays and doing holiday stuff, so we're taking December off. And lastly, I also point out here, local business gift certificates for our restaurants, beauty shops, retail shops. Make great holiday presents, and I've talked to all the businesses, and they almost all offer them. So if you're looking for something for that person, you want to sample Dayton, it's a good chance to get some gift certificates for them. That's the end. That's my report. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I want to make a comment, but I would have told you this personally, but I want to let everybody know. You've been here 11 months. You've done an outstanding job, and I compliment you on it. The city is on the move, and you have done a lot for the city, and I appreciate it. I mean, I just want to tell you thank you. I looked on the internet, and you're talking about the business at 6th and Main, I think it was, and it had a virtual view of it, and it was on Craigslist.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. You're doing an outstanding job, and I commend you for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Lieutenant Baldwin.
Provided everybody a copy of our monthly status.
All right, thank you. Chief Audrey.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening.
Did anybody ever comments or questions on my report submitted? One thing I did forget to add, it's been a busy day, I did that this morning. We did have our ISO analysis done. We got our results back, Michael got a copy, and Bill got a copy. It's something done every 5 years. Really, one thing the fire department gets out of this is bragging rights, but for your businesses, they get insurance breaks, the lower we can get. I was just kind of digging through this a little bit ago, I didn't realize there's 10 classes. It's over 46,000 fire departments in the country. And we're in class, we got a class 2. I think we've always been a 4. So we're in the top 1,300.
What's the ISO rating? What's the number after the ISO? And usually like ISO 9001 or 2110, depending on, I was just curious about the classification on it.
Yeah, Michael has all the information.
Okay.
Yeah, there's all kinds of classifications and numbers, and there's a lot that you have to do. When I came in 5 years ago, I never really done an ISO, and I didn't know what to expect. We got a 4, and so what can we do to get a 3 without spending a lot of money? You know, so we looked at things on how we were maintenance trucks and keeping records and getting out doing re-inspections and mutual aiding more with Newport, Fort Thomas, on them coming down here on a lot of the runs, all that added points. So yeah, we were really shooting for a 3, and then when we got this back and got a 2, we were
Outstanding.
very excited. But again, this really will benefit any company, businesses coming into Bellevue or Dayton and Cape, because it'll be a great big break on their insurance.
Do you think it would be an advantage for homeowners?
I checked into that today. I was asking, and someone said they really didn't think so. But
I'll ask my agent what you know.
ask your agent, because the person I said no. But I was thinking the same thing. I thought, well, do people just get a break on their? Because people do get a break in the rural area, as far as if you have a pond or a pool for drafting purposes, because there's no hydrants in a lot of countries. So you know. We were proud, but I apologize for not getting that in there this morning. I was coming down here and I was thinking, I'm like, I think I forgot something. I thought, well, this is pretty exciting news. So we did get our hydrants finished. We only had 3 leakers and they are fixed. So we got on those early this year. 288 hydrants. So we did, I think, 3 checks on them. So,
Well, congratulations.
well, thank you.
Great job.
If you guys need anything, you know, have a safe holidays and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, thank you.
Officer Lyles.
Mayor, Board, City Attorney, City Administrator, first I'd like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to serve the City of Dayton. So those of you that don't know me, my name is Phil Lyles. I'm a lifelong resident of Campbell County. I spent 28 years with the City of Newport. I was born at Spears Hospital, so I'm kind of coming back home. I assure you that I will do the best that I can for the City of Dayton in all capacities. My door and my phone is always open for all of you. I can also assure you that I am doing right. I started November the 6th. I had done 2 police calls, and both of those were, one was assisting and one was a run when no one was available in Bellevue and or Dayton. So I assisted in Bellevue with an alarm dropped when no additional Bellevue officer was available and no additional Dayton officers were available. I handled 1 run in the City of Dayton. That was a juvenile in distress when it was one of those calls where they couldn't wait. I responded to that call, unable to locate. So that is my 2 police runs after being here 30 days. I sent you all activity reports. I have 2. I'm still working on that. I've kind of hit the ground running, and I am in the process of learning. I came from Newport, so As you know, Newport is pretty much the same outlay and the same type of building structure, parking issues, blight issues that occur in Dayton. So I was involved in it, as the entire police department was involved in it in the city of Newport, as well as in the city of Dayton, as far as pointing out those issues. Now I'm just doing a little bit more hands-on as far as issuing citations and issuing violations, talking to homeowners, talking to landlords, talking to residents, to improve the city of Dayton for everyone that works here, lives here, and plays here. That's what I'm doing. I did 2 reports. Unfortunately, I didn't get them out to you until earlier today, but they'll be in your email. I did 2 reports. I'm working on that as well with iWorks to improve that. If you see, after looking at them, if there's some kind of additional information that you're interested in, shoot me an email, shoot Michael an email, and we'll do what we can to implement that into the report. My first report is a November 2017 letter report. And what that consists of is that I have sent out 32 letters since I've been here that involved violations or citations. And the second report is just a closed case report that lets you know that what those were. The closed case report is cases that had already been opened by Rich, and I checked them. How I've done it, just to let you all know, other than trying to work the intricate parts out in the administrative section, I've started down at the river level in 3rd, and then I'll work my way up and my way across to follow up on what Rich has done. So I've closed 11 cases based on cases that were opened, and they followed up and did what they were required to do. So that's the 2 reports that I've issued for November. Anyone have any questions or concerns or anything they'd like to bring up? Yes, sir.
And this is better addressed to Mr. Giffen. We created a form on the city website a while back so that any citizen could report code violations. Is that still functional?
It is, yes.
Okay, so you've tested it and he would get those reports?
Yes, sir. I know, I still get some. I think he's been getting. Yes. In addition to doing follow-up on my cases, some of these have been cases that have come to me on complaints. So I'm not just doing Rich's stuff, but that is a big part of it. But anything that comes in, I usually follow up on it within the next day or so. And I'll go out, and what I do initially is I go out and I look at the situation, take photos, and then I would issue, if there's not already an open case, I would issue a violation. I would send that to them, and based on what it is, if it's a trashy yard, I may give them 2 weeks to clean it up. If we're talking about paint, siding, or one of those issues that obviously we can't do anything in this type of weather, I'm giving them until May or June to put forth some effort. When I go back there, my system allows me to set an alarm for the time that I have set to go out and re-inspect those locations. So I'll go out, re-inspect, and then make a determination at that time whether or not to issue a citation or possibly push the abatement date out a little bit farther. As I've explained to the people that I've talked to, the people that have come in, we're not in this to take your money. We are here, myself, the city administrators, the city itself, just wants you to improve your property, whether you're the homeowner and or the landlord and or the tenant. I've already been to 2 code enforcement meetings, and we've upheld 2 and dismissed 1. We had a couple parking complaints, we upheld those as well. So this will be an ongoing thing. I'm looking forward to it getting a little bit warmer. There's no doubt I'll be busy. And as I stated, I won't let any of you down. You call me, I'll get back with you. If I don't have an answer, I'll work with Michael and we'll find an answer. That's what I'm here for. My 28 years in law enforcement won't do anything but help me do my job in this aspect better. I promise you.
I want to clarify my questions earlier. this city has had, I'll term, inconsistent code enforcement over the past few years, actually almost decade. And really, our existing property values stayed flat, almost flat, since last year. And I think a lot of that can be cured by code enforcement. That's one of my highest priorities. So I'm glad that you're going to be concentrating on that, and that's why I wanted to get it clarified in public. So please don't take any offense as far as what I said earlier. And the other issue was, quite frankly, the money that's being involved here. But believe me, Virgil and Michael will tell you, I will be keeping you busy as far as reports.
You get a hold of me, email, I'm here to help.
Thank you.
I'm here to make it happen.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. Any communications? No. Okay. Any petitions? Any unfinished business? Any new business?
I have two items, sir, if I could. One I have discussed with you and Mr. Giffen earlier this week, or last week, I guess it was, when I finally had a chance to stop in. I would like for administration to start the process of getting with Kentucky Transportation Cabinet to allow us to put a crosswalk markings at 6th and McKinney on the west side of the intersection. That would be going from Trotta's to the old Rifkin's, Millie's Drapery. A lot of people are parking on the other side of the street and trying to cross there. It's a little bit dark at times. And I know that working with Route 8 and the Transportation Cabinet can take a while. Plus, we don't want to paint it in the winter. But if you get those wheels in motion, I would appreciate it. The second thing is actually for our city attorney. We discussed this at the Main Street Board meeting last week. We're starting to get a parking problem in the Central Business District, which is great news. It is wonderful news. I think council and administration, we're going to need to start looking at the parking situations in the lots. We discussed a little bit of it the other day, but I'd like to see something at least proposed to council, whether it be a time limit or whatever resolution. The second thing is we need to look at our zoning ordinances. All of the articles I'm reading, Strong Town, City Lab, etc., the successful resurgent old-fashioned downtowns eliminate their parking requirements for businesses. And I think we need to do that with our zoning ordinances. Pardon me?
What does that mean? What does that mean?
For example, when I was on Board of Adjustments when we brought in Buena Vita at first. And because of the number of apartments and the number of tables and the number of employees, they had to have X number of parking spaces under our ordinances. We were able to include in a 300-foot radius some of the public parking lots, but now we're getting more businesses in. And if each business is required to provide that number of parking spots, I think it may be a deterrent. So I think we need to look at the ordinances, and if we can, at least in the CBD, pull them back out.
Well, we pulled them back a couple of years ago, if you recall. So they're not limited to that initial count that you may be referring to. We included in some flexible language that would include, I think it being a historic district and or historic building would eliminate the need for parking up to 75% in some cases. And also if it's along the bus route, it eliminates, I think, up to 75% in some cases. So a lot of that was implemented a couple of years ago. We can still look at it to improve it, but I think that solved the problem where most of the buildings, if not all of them, in the CBD, and even as it gets into the NCD and even into some of the commercial buildings in the R1JJ that we've made some improvements to, would be covered under that. So most of them can be eliminated up to like 75%. So if one of these was required at one point to have 100, they would really only need 25 at this point because they would qualify for the reduction. Some of them that didn't have off-street parking wouldn't even require them to have that anymore because of the location to already existing city parking lots and the reductions that I just spoke of. So we can look at it, but
I think we need to go through with the fine-tooth comb because I've already gotten complaints about what's going to happen when the coffee shop opens at 6th and Vine.
Yeah, no,
It's a
from
mixed neighborhood there with residential there.
From a public perspective of where they're going to park is certainly an issue, but from a business standpoint of them having to produce X amount of off-street parking spaces, it shouldn't be an issue anymore.
Like I said,
But the parking is still going to be a problem for pedestrians and people coming into town, for sure.
understood.
Yeah.
And it's great to have a parking problem, and I think we need to pay attention to what we can do to make sure that it doesn't become a bigger problem.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah,
two
I
items,
agree
sir.
with that.
Anyone else?
Mayor, I just want to make a comment that I want to pay a personal tribute to, thank you to Oscar Brumman and his son. Oscar has taken it upon himself to build the new nativity set for, it's not the city, but it's for the private sector. And so I want to thank Oscar Brumman and his son, but I also want to thank Vic Borowski. He paid for it, but no money's came out of the city funds.
Any more new things? We need to go into executive session for one thing.
So,
Small.
as for a motion for an executive session for deliberations under 61.810, Section 1, Subsection B, deliberations on the future acquisition or sale of real property by a public agency, but only when publicity would likely affect the value of a specific piece of property to be acquired for public use or sold by the public agency. Property in question is a property owned by the city of Dayton.
Any motion?
To go into executive, I'll make that motion, sir.
Motion by Danny, second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
We're in executive session.
Okay, all right.
I need a motion to come out of executive session.
Make that motion.
Motion by Jeff, second by Bill. Yeah, no, there you go. Now I need a motion. All in favor?
Hang on, we gotta open the door at least, so that way
Okay,
if
go ahead.
anybody was out here that wants to come in, they could. All right, now go ahead.
All right, and now I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Merry Christmas, everybody.